Today I'm going to show you how to make some trousers for a Barbie. Correction, these can be for any doll. I'm using this one right here, but I'm going to show you how to take the measurements that you'll need to draft your own pattern. So you can use whichever doll you like, Monster High, Rainbow High, etc. And it should work, in theory. First things first, ignore this. There was an attempt. I am learning how to crochet, and this was like the second thing I attempted to make. So it's not great, but it is progress. I've got some paper and a pencil to note down the measurements that we get, and I have a new tape measure. The first measurement I'm going to take is 1/4 of the way around her waist, which I know sounds really strange, but this pattern is made up of 4 pieces. So I'm going to measure from her belly button 1/4 of the way around, which pretty much, if you can see, there is a seam. This is a useful feature with a Barbie. There's a seam that goes all the way down the side of her body, and you're going to want to measure just past that. I'm going to say that's about 3 centimeters, and then we're going to want to take another 1/4 measurement, this time from the widest part of her hip, which is about there. So we're going to want to go from the center here between the legs 1/4 of the way around. I'm going to say that that is about 4.5 centimeters. The next measurement we want is this distance from her belly button to between her legs, which is about 4.5. The next measurement is from between her legs down to her ankle, which is the inseam measurement, and that is 13 centimeters for me. And then you're also going to want to measure from the waist, or wherever you want your waistband to be, down to the ankle on the outside, and that is 17 centimeters for me. We don't want them to be too tight around the ankle, or when we go to take them on and off, they aren't going to fit over the heel. So I'm going to be quite generous with this, and it's about 3 centimeters or 3.5 perhaps. And I think that is all the measurements that we'll need for now. Next, we're going to translate those measurements into a pattern, which might sound quite daunting at first, but once we've got to the end of this, you're going to see the general shape that you're aiming for, and then I think it's going to seem a lot simpler. The first measurement, I'm going to use my ruler for this, is that 1/4 waist measurement. I've changed the camera position so it's a bit easier for you to see. So we've got our 1/4 waist measurement here, and then the next measurement you're going to want is the sort of seat crotch depth measurement. So we're going to measure 4.5 centimeters down from this outer line here, which is just there. And then from there, you're going to want to measure back across to find the 1/4 hip measurement, which was, whoops, I bumped the camera, which was 4.5. The next thing you're going to want to do is join this line to this dot on a curve to make your sort of crotch seam. So we're just going to sketch this until you have a nice sort of even curve. There we go. So that's the top part. And then you're going to want your inseam measurement, which was 13 centimeters. Going to go straight down. And then you're going to want that outer seam measurement, which was 17. and that should match up nicely. So then you're going to want your ankle measurement, which was 3.5 centimeters. But remember, that was all the way around. So in actuality, you're going to want half of that, which will be 1.75. I'm going to round that up to 2 centimeters. So you want to just take a 2 centimeter measurement out from the very bottom of your pattern. You can just eyeball this to be generally central. And then you're going to want to join it up on a diagonal like this. And make sure you don't go diagonally from here to here. You go diagonally from here to that measurement there, which was the crotch depth. We match that up. And that is the vague outline of our trouser pattern. I am going to add half a centimetre seam allowance wherever we need one. Okay, I went ahead and erased a few lines so it's not super confusing to look at, but this is our overall pattern with the seam allowance included. For the back piece, it's pretty much all the same except for one little difference at the end. So I'm just going to repeat this for the back and then I will show you the modification that needs to be made. Now, here is where the difference lies. So, obviously, with this measurement here, that was minus seam allowance 3 centimeters, whereas this one is 4 centimeters. What that means is that there will be a little bit of overlap that we can use to fasten the trousers in the back with a snap button or with Velcro. This curve is a lot more shallow than on this one. So that is the only difference. Now, I am going to add something additional with these. This is a completely optional step, but the thing I'm going to add is pockets, functional pockets. So I'm just going to sketch a general pocket shape. Pockets are comprised of 2 additional pattern pieces. So the first pattern piece is going to look like this. So this won't be visible, obviously, it's going to be on the inside. Now, if I can just use a highlighter to make this a little bit more clear. So this is our first pattern piece that I'm outlining in green. And then this that I'm going to outline in blue will be our second pattern piece for the pocket. Does that make sense? So that is going to be 2 additional pieces, and I'm just going to trace them onto a separate piece of paper. Because we are going to want a gap here, you're not going to need this whole area that I'm shading now. The leg piece is actually going to be just what I'm outlining in purple. I think it'll make more sense once it's all cut out and once I have the pocket pattern pieces transferred. But now the purple lines are going to be the trouser pattern piece. The blue lines are going to be our inner pocket piece, and then you're also going to have this green area as another pattern piece. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm also going to add a pocket onto this back panel, and this is a lot easier because it's just one pattern piece. I'm just going to eyeball this quite badly for what a back pocket looks like. Now I've just traced those pattern pieces onto some separate pieces of paper. So for the front pocket, we've got this pattern piece, and for the back, we just have this pattern piece. So the next thing will be to cut them out. Now we have all our pattern pieces cut out, and hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to see what I meant. So we've got the back piece and the back pocket, that's simple enough. But then we've got this front piece and our somewhat more complicated pocket situation. So this is going to go on top of there. So these two will be sewn together along this seam. Then they get sewn behind here. And the result will be a full pattern piece again. However, obviously there will be a gap left between these two and this guy, and that will be the pocket. So the next thing to do will be to transfer these onto said fabric. I have chosen this striped fabric just because I think that the vertical lines will help as a visual aid, and also because I was inspired by some trousers I saw on a site called Lucy&Yak, which is quite a popular shop at the moment here. I don't know if it's international. I believe it is. I shall have to look into that, but I'll insert some pictures here of the inspiration, and hopefully you'll see why I went for a striped fabric. So all we're going to do is transfer our pattern pieces onto this and then cut them out. So we have all our pattern pieces cut out now. Brief note, this is from my cat, so ignore that. She is very temperamental. Anyway, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this inner piece of our pocket. We're going to place this on the top so it's sort of good side to good side and match up along this curve. And then what we're going to do is sew with a back stitch, and we're just going to go nice and neatly all the way around. Okay, now that those are sewn together, what we are actually going to do next is, where this curve is just here, we're just going to snip some tiny little cuts into the seam allowance, not through your stitches, of course. That would be a bit of a catastrophe. And that just releases some tension. So our next port of call is to flip it inside like so. So now we have a nice finished edge. And then the next thing to do is to get this back piece of the pocket, the one that's visible in this gap here, match it up nicely. I've taken some pains to match these stripes up. Obviously, you don't have to use this fabric or stripes in general, but just a small thing if you are. Sometimes matching up the stripes can really help make it look good. Anyway, we match up these stripes, and then what we'll do is sew these together. Now we've got a fully functional tiny pocket, which you can put things in. The next thing I'm going to do is just top stitch along this seam. Make sure you only go through these two layers of fabric. I should have done this beforehand. Be smarter than I am. But yeah, I'm just going to quickly top stitch this. I'm going to use pink as a contrasting colour. So I just finished my top stitch and then quickly hemmed this bottom edge here while I still had pink on my needle. And then that's pretty much first pattern piece. So all we have to do next is repeat for the other front piece. Ta-da! So we've got both our pieces here, and what we're going to do is place them good side to good side and match them up along this edge here and sew along this line. So now that that is all sewn, we can go ahead and turn them the right way out. Now we have the front section of our trousers all made. Now we're moving on to the back piece. So this is a heck of a lot simpler. All we want to do is take our back pocket piece, do some little snips into these corners so that they're easier to fold, and fold them in. And then we just take it and place it on the back. Again, I tried to match the stripes up relatively well, but not perfectly, as you can see. Make sure those edges are turned in, and then we're going to just top stitch it on. Okay, that's all done. I went ahead and hemmed that bottom seam, and repeat for the next one. What we will do next is, just like the front set, we match them up good side to good side, and then we're going to sew along this line. However, unlike the first two, we're only going to sew a little ways up, because if you remember, we're going to need these edges free so that they can cross over in the back. Okay, now that those are attached, we're going to stop there for now, and we will come back to that crossover part later on. So we're just going to open that up. These are the two front panels, these are the two back panels, and we're just going to put those together and sew along there. So I have sewn both sides, and now we will sew up this leg, across and down the other. Alright, so we have the trousers pretty much all sewn together. I turned them right side out, and I also cuffed the bottoms, and yeah, the last two things we're going to need to do is hem these raw edges here, because that will be the crossover that we left free to add a snap button closure or Velcro if that's your preference. And after that we shall have to add a waistband. I actually decided to hem that seam with fabric glue because it's just such a tiny little seam allowance there. So next we shall add a waistband. And for the waistband, you don't really need a pattern piece. All you want is a piece of fabric the same length as the circumference of your doll's waist. And then I'm going to make mine about 2 centimeters wide so that when I fold it in half, I'll have a decent centimetre of waistband. Now we have our waistband piece. First of all, I'm just going to fold this very edge over so that we'll have a nice clean edge. I'm going to use a tiny dot of fabric glue just to hold that down. And you're going to want to do this to both ends. In order to sew it on, we're going to match up these two corners, place it so that they are good side to good side, match up the top edge of this with the top edge of your trousers, and wrap it all the way around until you meet the other end, and then sew along that top line. Now that that is sewn on all the way around back to the other edge, what we're going to do is flip it up like this and then fold it over until it's the width that you want your waistband to be. And then we're going to top stitch along here. We have pretty much an entire pair of trousers now. So the very last thing we're going to want to do is take our snap button, sew one side to the back of the crossover and one to the inside front of the crossover so that they will fit together like so. I'm assuming you know how snaps work. Here we go, those are all sewn on. We've got half here, half there, and we're just going to try them back on the doll to make sure that they fit nicely and pop them. There we go. Yay, they fit. And now Barbie has a full set of trousers. Obviously the print on these is kind of loud, it's a little bit intense. I would understand if you wanted to go with something a little bit calmer, but obviously this pattern is basically for something akin to like mom jeans, so that can be transferable to denim or like a solid color or whatever you want. I hope that this was a useful tutorial and that it made sense and was easy to follow. And if you did enjoy, I would very much appreciate a like on this video and maybe a subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!